that will be exposed by Klintøe. Welcome.
Thank
The
you.
topic is important because the climate change is seriously damaging people, infrastructure, and the economy. In Mexico, we must confront this situation with urgency and determination. To achieve this, we must profoundly transform our lifestyles and production systems. This is already being done in many countries. Those who have had to develop new government policies, new technologies, and successful products, thereby simultaneously accelerating the economy development and well-being of their populations. Denmark is an exemplary case. The Danish experience offers valuable perspectives that can guide and support our efforts in Mexico. I would like to thank Engineer Fernandez de la Garza for promoting global warming issues at the Academy, as well for inviting Hanne Klintøe. Ingeniero Fernandez, I would appreciate to take the floor to present Hanne Klintøe's profile and then for introduce the topic. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alberto. This is a great opportunity, and I thank very much the Academy and you for this. And of course, I thank very much Hanne, because she's a very busy lady and she has been doing a very big effort to be with us. But I think it's going to be very useful, and perhaps it can be the startup of something that might later on broaden to much more interactions with her and with other organizations that she knows. Hanne is a friend for many years. Personally, I have met her many years ago. But now she's really a powerhouse. And she's the head of Power to X Development. This is the name of the organization in the municipality of Avenray in Denmark. She has been doing very important work in several areas. She is a visionary strategist and change leader with more than 20 years of experience driving transformation across sectors and borders. Today, she serves as head of this organization, Power to X Development, in southern Denmark, driving green growth for one of Europe's most ambitious green transition hubs. I think this is very important. It's not just what she's doing directly, but she has the contact with a big effort that is being done in that part of Europe, involving Germany, of course, but other countries as well. With her international background, she has lived in 7 countries and speaking 6 languages. Hanne bridges cultures and sectors with ease and is a skilled leader, speaker, and moderator. In Avenray, she has a deep port, has 10 Tiscan-Med routes running right through it. It's one of the Nordic largest logistic hubs, and the hydrogen backbone on their way. I'm sure she will let us know more about that. But it's very interesting because it's a rural municipality with a heavyweight infrastructure. And this is quite unusual. And is ideally suited for the PTX value chain. And she will explain to us what the PTX means and the importance of it. Avenray is now the home of the world's largest PTX facility in Northern Europe. It has the largest solar park, and they are also producing from biogas and methanol bunkering and offtake of the port. So Hanne has given a lead role to this community in developing the hydrogen economy in the Danish-German border. And she's landing 1.4 million euros grant from the European Investment Bank to mature the Danish-German hydrogen value chains and build a cohesive cross-border cluster. She has had a very impressive career in many areas, but I think what is important more now is to listen to her. So I think I will just stop here her presentation. Thank you very much, Hanne, to be with us.
Thank you very much, Guillermo, and thank you, Alberto, for the welcome. Really looking forward to sharing this with you. So I'm going to share my screen. I have prepared a presentation which is fairly long, but there is a purpose with that. I want to share the slides with you afterwards so that you have a little bit of a compendium, and you can go back to some of the points and look at how you can translate that into a model for Mexico. So without further ado, this is an aerial of our Power-to-X facility and the Northern Europe's largest solar park, which is 3 kilometers long and 1.5 kilometers wide. And just to give you a little bit of background on my role, Aabenraa municipality is the first municipality in Denmark to ever create a role like this. It's a commercial capacity that is both attracting investments, but also making sure that we harvest all the benefits of what we build and that we create circularity in between the various sectors that result from this green growth. Guillermo has already given you the background, so I'll go straight into the case for green energy in 2025. DNV, the Norwegian Veritas, came out with their energy outlook only last week, and in the figures you can see the development onto 2060, and you will notice that the momentum up to 2030 is not very great. So we've seen very difficult times for green energy, and those are going to continue for a little bit longer, but then we will see momentum as we implement the political frameworks, incentives, and financing methods that will drive the transition. And also as fossil fuels will be shut down and CO2 taxes will come into play. If I put Aabenraa into context, this is a picture of the hydrogen backbone that is being built throughout Europe. We are getting the backbone by 2030 in our municipality, and that enables the hydrogen economy to grow. So already developers are implementing these projects in Denmark, and we think that we can be a major producer for the German heavy industry. To look at the Danish perspective, Denmark has been very ambitious early on. We have 88.4% renewable energy in our national power grid, and we will have 100% by 2027. This supports a major directive that drives the hydrogen economy. It's the RFNBO RED III directive. It means renewable fuels of non-biological origin, so it's typically the e-fuels, and that means these go hand in hand for the implementation of hydrogen in Denmark. When we get the certificates for the green fuels that we produce, we make sure that there's a business case that is supported by more than just the offtake. If we look at why Denmark is doing hydrogen, the government has outlined a strategy that ensures that it both contributes to reduce emissions and build sustainable and resilient energy systems. Hydrogen works as a balancer with the electrical grid. We have a lot of wind energy in Denmark and also solar implemented, but we need something we can store on a larger scale, and that can be hydrogen. So in that way, it helps. It also ensures that there's a regulatory framework and infrastructure in place for Power-to-X, and that Power-to-X is integrated with the rest of the Danish energy system. I'll come back to that. We have quite a lot of biogas in Denmark, and that is symbiotic with power-to-X production as you use the biogenic CO2. Finally, the strategy ensures that Denmark gains another export fuel and technology. The wind technology in Denmark has been a major export success and is still a very strong industry in Denmark, and power-to-X is set to be the next one. If we then zoom in on Aabenraa, it's a municipality, and in Denmark, the municipalities have the power to implement the new energy systems. It's not on the regional level, it's not on the national level. The municipalities are really boots on the ground. They are the ones deploying and working with the investors to make it happen. Aabenraa is very small if you count the residents, only 59,000, but it's quite large for a Danish municipality in terms of area, 940 square kilometers, and that means that we are ideally suited for these new energy systems. We have, although we are very small in terms of numbers, we are extremely heavyweight when it comes to infrastructure. We have a deep sea port, we have an international rail and motorway, we have a large logistics center, and then we have the energy infrastructure, the national grid, a huge transformation station, and soon the hydrogen backbone that runs in parallel with the gas infrastructure. So we pretty much have it all, and the area you see in red is completely flat. So on the east side you have the ice age rolling hills, and on the west side you have this completely flat land, which is perfect for energy planning. This is the deep sea port. It used to be a coal plant and also for coal storage, and that has been removed, and now it's turning into a green hub for energy. Here's the technical infrastructure, and it's to show you some of the complexities that are appearing. So the LP103 in the middle is our transformer station. Today it's 12 hectares. In the inserted picture, you see that it will expand, and it'll expand into the planning we've done for data centers and become 135 hectares. That's the maximum capacity for a transformer station in Denmark. It's 4 gigawatts, and that means that we will be a major hub for energy with an enforced grid around us. We have a lot of renewable energy. I've written VE, it's RE, and power-to-X in planning. You can see the red renewable energy parks dotted all over the municipality, and you can see the large solar park near Kassø, where the power-to-X center is. The hydrogen backbone will launch in 2030, so already now we're working with power-to-X developers to plan for their various sites. In order to get to where we are today in a leading situation, we need to look at the municipality that we are. We have 68% agricultural land, and that accounts for 64% of all of our emissions, including 25,000 tons of biogenic CO2 per year. We needed to do something about that. So first of all, we've tagged on to the national goals for emissions reduction, meaning that we have to reduce 70% of our emissions by 2030. But we've also created our own strategy. There are 31 politicians in the local council, and they have unanimously voted for a green way forward. That is really crucial when we want to plan energy, because at some point in the process, you will clash with the local sectors, and you will find holes in the national legislation that you then need to break down. I'll come back to that. For the municipality, it's also been a major investment. We've got 6 additional employees. We've got a steering committee for Power-to-X and the development around Power-to-X that goes into other sectors. And we have me attracting businesses to Områ and making sure that we become a green investment hub. But the innovation that we're doing is not only in technology, it's also in the way that we work. So the speed in permitting cannot be underestimated. It is absolutely crucial for the investors that they have a fast permitting process. And what we did is we took the 38 approval processes that are inside the planning of a Power-to-X facility, and then we knocked them all together and ran them in parallel. Normally, you run these processes consecutively, and when it needs a minister's approval, the process can take 3-4 years. Ours was completed in 17 months. So when we're talking the green transition, the thing that's always overlooked is that we have to innovate also the how, not just the what. And that's what we're an example of. And it really works, showing this innovative planning process and gathering it with the political will. We have the largest solar park, the largest Power-to-X plant, the largest charging station for trucks in our logistics center, and we also have one of the world's largest biogas plants. So all of this goes hand in hand with the sectors that we already have. It supports the building sector, the construction sector, the transport sector, agriculture, and now also the energy system. What European Energy has done with this plant is that they've added new innovation also. Now it gets a bit technical and it's not my home field, so forgive me for not knowing all the details, but they have recently added an electric steam methane reforming technology to the Kassø plant. We're having trouble sourcing enough biogenic CO2. This can seem really illogical, seeing as we are trying to get rid of CO2, but we need the biogenic CO2 for Power-to-X so we can create e-fuels such as e-methanol. But because we're having trouble getting that CO2, and we also need to invest in the carbon harvesting, so the CCUS, then they are now using production of biomethanol on par with the e-methanol. The two can be blended completely, like it's the same chemical formula. Nature doesn't judge, I usually say. So they can be blended into the same storage systems which we have on the port. So what that's resulted in is a complete Power-to-X value chain and sector integration. We use the surplus heat both for district heating and also for green production in, for instance, the food sector. I'll come back to that. We use the CO2 from the local biogas. So this cycle of agriculture running manure into biogas plants, and then you degas it and they run the manure back out to the fields as fertilizer, that works perfectly with our energy system now. European Energy were very quick to find their clients. So the e-methanol is being used in shipping and also in the plastics industry. Novo Nordisk, the Danish life science company, uses it for their injector pens for diabetes, and they also use it in Lego to make the Lego bricks. And what this does on a larger scale, I've inserted again a map, and I will forgive you if you don't know the Danish geography, but we sit sort of on the top of Europe and border with the northern German region. And in these two larger regions, it's for many years been very hard to create growth because both are agricultural. And now we're perfectly placed to implement these energy systems. So that means that we solve the growth challenge we had before by creating an emerging sector, a decarbonization route, and also an innovation driver that ends up creating real growth, many jobs, social conditions that are much better, and just a more resilient society. On a larger scale, we are developing a hydrogen valley where we can streamline the use of the green fuels and figure out how do we best support the industry in growing, because you have to think about that factor at all times in the green transition. There isn't enough help. The political framework isn't in place in all respects. So you have to find pathways in a larger geography so that you run several projects in the same direction, thus creating volume in the offtake and a better business case. So that's what we're trying to do. But now I get to the real benefits for the local society. And that's one way to really sell the idea of implementing energy systems, that it's not just about the energy security and about the green transition. It's also about real benefits for the local community, cleaning up the environment and also creating circular resources. So one thing we do from Power2X, and that is perhaps on a societal level, not as important in Mexico as you're quite a hot country, but we're quite a cold country. So we need to use the heat both for heating, and currently we're heating 3,500 houses with the surplus heat from Power2X, and we will get up to 10,000 houses from the current plant, which will be expanded later so we can actually heat the whole municipality. In pipeline, Power2X wise, we have 2.6 gigawatts. It's a very, very large scale of Power2X, and it's covering about a third to around a third of what initially was projected as the production cap in Denmark. And that means that we will get a lot more heat. We're also getting data centers that will add up to 6 terawatt hours of heat. And that means that we need to find production facilities that can use it. Greenhouses use about 60 gigawatt hours per year per 10 hectares. And currently we have a large developer who want to create 50 hectares. So that will go some way to utilize the heat. But we really need to look at more technologies and actually change the way we produce many things so they can run on heat. In Denmark, currently only 13% of industrial heat is used as energy. We're also producing technical water for this Power2X. Obviously, as hydrogen is made of water and energy, we need a lot of it. And we don't want to use our groundwater because we don't want to suddenly lose that resource just because we need energy. So we're looking at using our wastewater and cleaning it to technical water standards, so very close to the ultra pure water they need for Power2X, but not completely. They need to do the final polishing at their plant so as to not introduce anything in the pipelines and making sure that everything is secure. We're also going to use technical water for food production in the greenhouses and other types of food production. And we can see that that's been done already. There are several, actually not demonstration plants, but real scale plants in Sweden where they produce drinking water from wastewater from a chicken factory. So it's quite interesting that technical water is becoming like an innovative technology. It's been used for several years in places like Spain. This development also gives us an opportunity to do real sector integration, and that means building large-scale infrastructure for all these different types of water. The district heating is shared through a water medium, and if we do it cleverly, we can do a multi-use tracé, it's usually called, so a very large pipe that holds other pipes for the wastewater, the clean water, the district heating, the technical water, the rainwater, all of these different modes of water in the same pipe. Alongside it, we would like to create infrastructure for CO2, for the oxygen that is coming from Power-to-X, for the e-methanol, etc., but that is on a longer timeline. This is some of the benefits for a municipality like ours when we plan large-scale infrastructure, apart from the fact that we're actually building a microgrid and can be very resilient in case the main grid is attacked. So just to summarize, the added value of Power-to-X can be the heat utilization for heating. This is the main town. As you can see, it looks very Danish. Also for green production, not only greenhouses, it could also be in aquaculture, it could be in aquaponics, it could be various types of plant-based protein production that typically includes some drying, some production of powders, some baking, all these different types of processing. We also get circular water resources. When we clean the wastewater to use it as technical water, we basically get a very concentrated sludge, and this sludge we then get finally an opportunity to take out of the environmental system and get rid of. What we're looking at for that is we're looking at pyrolysis as a technology and implementing that where the biogas plants are, so that we get biochar that can be implemented in the agricultural environment and also used for various types of fillers in construction and making the construction more sustainable. We also get the technical expansion and development. So one thing is that we have to invest in infrastructure, but we also gain some. So the moment that you have very large investors coming to create energy plants, then by law, the TSOs, the transmission operator, must expand the grid and transformer stations in order to receive this call for energy. And that means in a municipality like ours that very soon we will run out of spots in the transformer station in Kassø, and we will get a second one. So it's a really positive development when you want to drive growth, that you also get this benefit. What we want to end up with is this food and bio innovation hub where we have production of both food and also bio-based materials. It could be for the construction sector that we have, and it can also be for various types of packaging. We have a very large diaper producer in Aabenraa, and they're constantly looking for various types of alternatives to plastics because they use it both in their product but also in their packaging. So I've just spoken to a couple of those today. If you look at renewable energy and Power-to-X in numbers, we can see that 70% of Denmark's emission reductions will be related to both renewable energy and Power-to-X, and that our electricity need will grow to 3 times as large by 2040. This is not just electrification of industry, but it is also the way various types of utilities are run. So there will be way more heat pumps that run on electricity. There will be implemented electric vehicles in pretty much all municipalities and regions on the public level. So there are many drivers of the electrification. When you implement, and this is an interesting figure for you, when you implement 1 gigawatt of solar, wind, and power to X, you get about almost 15,000 jobs, or at least 15,000 annual works. So the work of one person for a year. It's quite a lot of jobs, and it means not only permanent jobs, but also jobs in the building phase. But the building phases are quite long, so it does run a construction industry for a very long time consecutively. The renewable energy capacity for Denmark is 30 gigawatts that need to be established by 2030. And I tried to calculate it in Mexican peso. It's 27.2 billion that it costs to implement 1 gigawatt. The hydrogen demand in Europe, currently the hydrogen sector is having a really, really difficult time, but we know that the demand will increase by 355% by 2050. So even though it's going slowly now, as you saw in the DNV figure, then it will grow. A few insights and learning outcomes from a city planning perspective that's worth taking into account as well when you plan is that what we've done in Åbenrå is quite unusual. Usually an administration will not plan anything but the safe way, but we could see what a huge benefit we could get from this, and therefore we're literally paving the road as we go. So sometimes we don't know where we're going, but we're going anyway because we want to make sure that the projects are realized, and we know that we learn a lot in the process. We involve many different disciplines when we do this work, and that means it's almost the number of permits to the number of disciplines. So that's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but when you think about it, you need the building permit, you need the environmental permit, you need the technical permit, the security permit. There are so many different things. And then there's the fitting it into the local plan that's already there and making sure that we don't break any rules there. The circularity of resources, the heat utilization, where you'll get the water from, what other types of water systems you can support in thinking about water in a new way, that must be addressed very early on. Then you get the maximum benefit, and you must ensure that all parties are working together. They may not be used to that, so the utilities and the administration, any administration bodies on the local or national level, all of that needs to be orchestrated, and you must have a central actor that drives it. We took that position because we thought it was practical, and it turned out to be a very good idea, but it depends a little bit on the national organization of these things. This is very much innovation work. So even though we don't think of municipalities as innovative, it really is the whole open mind, run an agile process, absorb new knowledge and implement it, be ready to pivot, run processes in parallel. Even if you end up in a major traffic jam, then it's worth it because you do save a lot of time. One big challenge in Denmark is our TSO. They're called Energinet, and their processes are not geared to the green transition at all. They work in a very old-fashioned way. They don't coordinate across fields, so they don't create between the grid and the hydrogen backbone. And I've been a major voice in that, going, hello, can you talk together, please? Because their organization simply isn't designed to do that. They work very much in silos. And it's ironic because I think for 20 years, we've been able to read in leadership books that you mustn't work in silos if you want to innovate. So, but they still do. So we need to push for a new way of working, and it does actually help to point it out. What works well is for the municipalities to be a driving force. So that also speaks for, if you don't have the national acceptance of green energy, well, then start on the local level. Build these microgrids. Find the developers that can develop it with you, and create pilot projects so you can show how it's done. You must have a task force, and you must be structured in your collaboration, and then you can copy what we've tried to do and really run the green transition as a business strategy. Think about the growth it can create. Think about how the development of green energy systems can pull an environmental beneficial development with it, and in turn also create jobs and a higher standard of living. I think that's it for that. The citizen engagement is perhaps worth mentioning as well. It's only just 2 slides, but we've been quite successful in driving a process where we have avoided the whole "not in my backyard" and the big campaigns against green energy. We had a situation some years ago where some wind turbines were put up on the German side of the border, but very close to the border, meaning they were very close to Danish houses. Obviously, the citizens on the Danish side weren't too impressed, and that created a little bit of a movement against wind, and that meant that the administration paused all wind projects for 2 years. So we knew it was very important to get the citizens on board. So we ran a lot of implementation of solar, and we ran a process through dialogue. So by law, you must have a hearing when you have a large change to a local plan. But we started dialogues way before. So we did a dialogue with the local councils the minute we knew there was a project. We got the developers to have meetings with the local councils themselves. And we said, we can't demand that you find a way forward together, but we would strongly encourage it. And they got the point. And so they would hold their own meetings, and they would find an agreement of what type of benefit do you want from us developing this in your neighborhood. And they could say, well, we would like to end up with a new football pitch for our kids or something like that. And they would find an agreement that everybody could work with. And then when it came to the official hearing, nobody would complain. And this works really, really well. It really helps to have the local politicians show up to meet the citizens, to explain the long-term effects, to tell them how many jobs are being created and what they will get in the other end. We're continuously reviewing our process, so we're also developing new things like the technical water, and that means we have to find a way for that as well. The surplus heat is a very, very easy one to sell. We can end up heating our swimming pools, the public swimming pools. We can heat all the houses. We can heat all the public buildings, and it makes it cheaper for everyone. So that's an easy one. So these are some of the questions that we typically get. How will the renewable energy facility affect real estate prices? And if you think about this, a major solar plant suddenly being implemented adjacent to a village means that some of the houses will look onto it, or they will look onto greenery where before they had an open view over the field. So they think, okay, so if I want to sell my house, it's not going to be worth the same. European Energy made a very, very good strategy for this. First of all, they offered to buy all the houses that were close to the facility. And those who didn't want to move, they said, okay, we will give you a purchase contract for 10 years, and we will hold the same price or with a margin plus if the real estate market has gone up. So you just need to have a sort of strategy for this. How will it affect agricultural production? We've had a little bit of a hiccup because in the Danish planning, the agricultural planning law and the industrial planning law clashes. So if you have animals, if you have cows or pigs, that smells, and usually that can't be in a city zone, and all industrial planning is in city zone. So all of a sudden the agriculture couldn't expand when the power to X expanded. And who got there first? Well, agriculture did, so they were a bit miffed that they couldn't expand. That is being fixed now, but these are some of the legislative problems you will face because our legislation was made for the old world. Citizens also ask about traffic. Obviously, it increases when we're building something and when suddenly there are more jobs. So that needs to be taken into account. And also how the community will continue to be cohesive and have benefits from this. And then, of course, they ask about the district heating. And I think that's it for now. So I think I'll unshare my screen so I can, hang on a second. Now my mouse is gone. That is not so good. Here we go. My mouse is back. There you go. That's what I've got.
Well, but congratulations. I can say it was educative, was interesting and important to us. And I'll ask our Vice President, Dr. Guillermo Aguirre, to moderate the questions and comments. Please proceed, Doctor.
Yes, it will be my pleasure, and great presentation, and it's just amazing to hear all that you have achieved. So are there any questions? You can translate if you want to. Yes, Maestro Álvaro San Pedro, please.
You can ask in Spanish too, because Hannah have the translations in the text.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. I allow me to express my congratulations also, my warmest and green congratulations for the achievement you have in your country. My question is this: Mexico is mainly an oil producer and in refinery products, and it means we produce gasoline, petrol, diesel, and this kind of fuels. And as you are well aware, in this kind of industries, the hydrogen is strategic, because we need to remove the sulfur from the oil, and then ensure that the fuels are free of this toxic pollution. As far as I know, the Danish government have made some joint ventures with Mexico for the production of hydrogen and installing facilities for close to the refineries. But I am not well aware. Do you, Hanne, have some more accuracy data about this, please?
I do not have data on the agreement, but I will investigate and I can inform Guillermo. But what I can say is that we're already using green hydrogen in our refinery. We have a central refinery called Crossbridge, and Crossbridge is already off-taking green hydrogen from a developer called Everfuel. So this coupling has already been made, and already we see the benefits. What we also are looking at is the production of eSAF, so sustainable aviation fuel, and that can also be refined in your existing refineries. So it's also worth thinking about even if you're not using oil anymore, if one day that will be phased out, let's say when that will be phased out in Mexico, then you can still use the refinery. So it's a transition that can be gradual, where you implement the hydrogen first, and then you start the production of green fuels. And then in the end, you have your energy system. But it's very interesting with this agreement.
Yes.
If you have any more, anything like what it's called or something like that, do let me know. But otherwise, I'll ask
Yes.
my friends that invest in Denmark.
Yes, Hanne, I am going to send to Guillermo Fernandez all the information I could, I might get for
Yes.
for enriching this question to you.
Yeah.
But hopefully we make some business with that, with Dinamarca. I would be very pleased because you are first world class.
Thank you. I'll pass that on. And I think there was one more perspective that we talked about it a little bit before everyone came into the room. But I think what the Områ case is a very good example of is how the whole green transition is best developed as a type of pilot project. So what we really have now is a microgrid, and microgrids are really what will make the future energy system resilient. So if the main grid goes down, we can become independent because we have renewable energy, we have electrolysis, we have e-methanol, we have bunkering, so we have the storage, we have battery parks that keep the energy.
Yes.
And if you think about the development of the energy system in Mexico as a development of microgrids that then later on get connected, then it becomes a lot more manageable, because the argument is then energy resilience. It's not a matter of green or black. And it sort of, it takes the power out of this whole propaganda and the whole fight between camps, because all of a sudden everybody can see the point in having a resilient energy system.
Yes, madam. Thank you very much to you.
Thank you, Alvaro. We have another participation from Nelson Arismendi. Nelson, if you want to ask Annie. You have not turned your microphone on.
Hey,
there you are.
Thank you, Annie. It's very motivational, this talk that you have, and congratulations for what you have done. And I have several questions. No, it's what is important, as you said, and you give us some of the best practices to make the things happen. Thank you also for that. One is the aspect of the state of law. There's also the partition of the community. Also the permitting, which is important, because otherwise it takes a long time to make this happen. No? The other thing is related with, and I think that the energy matrix depends on the competitive advantage of every country. No? In the case of Mexico, as you say, we have solar, wind, also geothermal. Geothermal, we have the 5th reserves in the world, but we have not used, we use only 2% of that. No? And in the area of the marine sector are coming several advances also on that. No? But also there are opportunities for the biomethane also for the pyrolysis, as you say. But sometimes one of the things is, for example, for hydrogen, there are 3 alternatives right now. One is the electrolysis, the other is the aspect of the ultra frequency, and the other is through gasification of biomass, for example. No? So do you have some alternatives in order to see, because one of the things in order to make this happen is also that sustainability and the circular economy has to be also has also an economic driving, no, on that. Now, for example, one of the questions I have is related with the capex, as you say, for this electricity produced, and as you say, also for the microgrids, the importance of the solar plus storage, no, and the microgrids. That makes a lot of sense, especially in our country, where we have a deficit in terms of infrastructure in transmission and distribution. So that's a good solution also. But maybe not in one of the things I would like to know is about the hydrogen cost that you have, for example, the SFA cost that you have, biomethane, what is the cost that you will have using these type of technologies. And interesting what you say, that combining the biomethane with the pyrolysis to have also biochar, and at the same time also use the CO2 to produce biomethanol, for example. No, that's really interesting in order to have a really green fuels. I am also working with the marine sector for the decarbonization. No? So I'm really interested in all of these solutions that helps to the decarbonization and accomplish with those targets. And one of the things is also to have, you say, a sustainable supply, reliable and sustainable supply, and also at the same time you have a reliable and sustainable demand on the other side. Is also to break the chicken and egg situation, no? that also happens. And so I understand that there are several questions, but I would like also to understand a little more about the economics on this in terms of capex, opex, or later through the Guillermo and the Academia of Engineering, we can share this information also. No, I understand this is a very successful case in the case of Denmark, but we need from that what is can be useful for using in Mexico. No.
Yeah, there's several things I want to say to what you've asked and pointed out. Number one, when you look at starting, then already now we know that if you just deploy renewable energy, solar and wind, then you end up in a situation where the energy prices go up and down, and up and down, and up and down. The electricity prices will fluctuate, and basically the developers will make no money at a certain time of the day, and then the prices will be extremely high at other times. You also get what we call Dunkelflaute. It's a German expression, but it's basically when there's no sun, there's no wind, and suddenly maybe the temperature in the country drops overnight 13 degrees, and then boomba, you need 63% more energy. That happened for one night last year, and it's still the best case to show that when you implement new energy, you must implement storage. So European Energy, who have our solar and Power-to-X, they are now implementing batteries into all of their existing facilities as well as every new facility. So all solar parks, all wind parks will get batteries as well built in, so that they can decide when are we going to sell and when are we going to buy, so that we constantly have energy in our own system. And that's very important when you plan on a larger scale, that you don't implement a system like we did and just thought, yeah, renewable energy is great, just produce, because then all of a sudden there's no business case, and then they stop developing. We had a very large developer in Denmark. It was a Comet. They just developed and developed, and they were growing, and they had 1,000 employees, and they folded because all of a sudden all the prices tanked. So that's number one. For the hydrogen and the electrolysis, I would strongly encourage that we set up a presentation by European Energy because they've really thought about this. They have created a test site, not in our municipality, but very close to us in Esbjerg, where they side by side have a production of hydrogen on 4 different types of electrolysis technologies. So they are testing which one is more efficient, where do they get the lowest level of energy loss into heat, where do they get the most stable production, and then they can implement the right one in their future plants. So that's also quite an interesting one to look at for you if you want to drive this this development. Then there's the synergies between all the different systems. So there's the biomethane, there's the methanization. If you inject hydrogen into that plant, you can actually get more methane out of your biogas production. There's the Synax, the ESMR that I showed you that produces biomethanol. But there's also one I haven't mentioned, and that's ammonia. And ammonia can become a really large leg, particularly for shipping. But it's not been seen in Denmark yet. There is a planned facility, but it's not live yet. And there are some security issues around ammonia that are not quite settled yet, as I understand it. But it's quite an important one. And it's one that is betted on also if you look at the DNV figures and all of their data, that will be a major part of the shipping fuels. So there's quite a lot to look at when you plan, but literally, as it's the green transition and we're working in innovation and we're working on the part of innovation where you implement and you make societal solutions, you need to think about all these synergies, but you need to think not too long. You also need to deploy. You literally need to say, for this region, we're going to create this. That means that we don't have the ESMR, we don't have the biomethane, but we have this and this and this. And then you create a microgrid there. And then elsewhere, you plan something else. And then you test and you hold it up against each other. And in the end, you will connect when you get infrastructure. But as long as you create smaller projects that go fast to market, so you get the economy going and you make business cases that work, then you're on the right track.
Thank you very much, Hanne. And
of course, and I'll try and get you some figures on the costs. I think it was quite insightful for me. We've just had a report done, and it was quite insightful for me to see that they could calculate 1 gigawatt of a mix between solar, wind, and power to X. That there's a figure on that. That's 27 billion pesos, and that creates 15,000 jobs. I mean, already that's something to go by, because then you can calculate what do we need in our energy system by which year, and then you will know pretty much the cost. And much of that cost will be held by the developers. And then some of the cost is municipal administration, TSOs, that they need more people because you're building a new energy system.
Great. Thank you, Nelson.
thank you.
Yeah. We have a presentation from our dear friend Luis Maumeyan. Please, Luis, take the stage.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I like it very much. And I will switch to Spanish for the benefit of all the audience and myself. Creo que México es un país sumamente grande como para dar recomendaciones genéricas. Tenemos muchos climas, tenemos muchos recursos, pero una mala distribución de todo, porque cuando llega un huracán, un exceso de agua nos pone en problemas que en Europa ni se imaginan. Tenemos una enorme capacidad hidráulica en el sur y una necesidad enorme de agua en el norte, y eso nos lleva a soluciones diferentes en todos lados. creo que estamos muy inquietos por adoptar soluciones novedosas que son muy eficientes. Y una de las grandes dificultades, como lo has dicho, es el almacenamiento de la energía. El almacenamiento creo que es un tema en sí mismo muy importante. Sé que en los países nórdicos, incluyendo ustedes, el almacenamiento del térmico va junto con el almacenamiento eléctrico. Las baterías de arena muy conocidas en Finlandia y en otros lados tienen capacidades enormes para sobreponerse a problemas relativamente momentáneos de 1 o 2 días. En México tenemos una capacidad a través del rebombeo de tener baterías de energía potencial importante. Entonces yo creo que la multitud de opciones que tenemos debe de analizarse con mucho cuidado porque hay soluciones muy aplicables en determinados casos. Y hay cosas como la que hemos estado manejando últimamente que son importantes, aunque aparentemente no son energía, pero en el fondo sí lo son. Y esto se refiere a problemas de biotecnología, en donde podemos alimentar a través de una economía circular a diferentes animales, incluso seres humanos, con proteína que procede de desperdicios orgánicos. Eso, por ejemplo, en el caso de ustedes, si se aplicara, reduciría los malos olores de los cerdos, las vacas y todo el ganado en general, que generalmente tienen un exceso de emisiones de metano y que con biotecnología se puede resolver a un 90%. Ese tipo de cosas creo que, aunque no son energía directa, pueden ser consecuencias y pues, derivados del análisis del problema. Entonces, mi punto de vista es tengamos mucho cuidado en generalizar soluciones porque no son fáciles.
No.
Creo que cada una tiene su problemática. Y una pregunta en específico, sé que en Dinamarca han establecido una serie de redes adicionales a las que ya se tenían, y eso implica problemas de infraestructura serios, porque hay que estar abriendo ductos por todos lados que no existían, y eso es una problemática adicional que generalmente nunca se menciona, pero que cuesta bastante. Agradezco mucho tu presentación y estamos contigo en todos estos elementos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for those comments. I think I got most of it. Yes, infrastructure is always the big question in the green transition. And it's one of the things I worked for an international organization before, and I still work with them, where we're trying to drive the green transition on a large scale between 4 nations across borders. And the key word is always implementation of sustainable infrastructure. And it is the most expensive thing. It is the most difficult to get through politically because it is expensive and because it doesn't raise emotions. So politicians can't win elections on it. It's like, yeah, we build a water pipe. People would be like, what? You know, you spent billions on a water pipe. We have another one over there, you know, and they don't understand it. But we're lucky in Europe that we have the European Union, because the European Union understands the value of infrastructure, and they have large-scale funds that you can apply for infrastructure projects. And I don't know what it's like in Mexico, understanding from Guillermo that it is very difficult at all to drive the green transition in any way, and that there isn't much funding to be had. But I'm wondering if through impact investments, through private funds, or through international relations, whether you can work to create these funds. Because it really is a tool that is instrumental in succeeding. And a place to start you mentioned that sometimes you have too much water in the, was it in the north and you need it in the south, and vice versa, and you get the hurricanes, then you have a lot of water, and then you have drought, and then you have no water. So that also means not only do you need water reservoirs, you need to be able to transport water. So that would probably be the most important place to start. But then you need electricity to drive the transportation of water. So that would also be a good place to start. But those two are essential. And before you've got those two, you can't have any hydrogen because you need water for that. So I would say there are several things. I don't know what the quality of your water is like in your reservoirs, but there are many microorganism technologies available now that clean water without you actually doing anything but adding microorganisms. It's a controlled process because they are the positive microorganisms, and they can clean up large lakes and bodies of water inland that then makes that water potable. So that could solve some of it. Then there are other technologies. I saw some demonstrated today at the conference I was at that are designed to hold water in the ground. So when you have a drought, they are sort of gel-like substances that just help keep the soil moist, and that means it doesn't evaporate, and therefore it protects the reserves further down. That could also be something you could look at. And I think many of these technologies are they are being developed here because we have a wealth for development based on the society that we have, and therefore we can invest in solutions that are more in our society nice to have than the sort of real big needs to have that are now green energy. So we can sort of go a little bit before, and I think some of those technologies would be interesting for you to look at in combination with your climate work, because that's just the protection of resources, basic resources that you need. Don't know if that makes any sense.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for participating, Luis. I have another request from Zenon Medina, great colleague. Based on a very particular part of Mexico, he will have very interesting points of view. Zenon, bienvenido. You have not... there you are.
Ahora sí.
Ahora sí, venga.
Muchas gracias. Aprecio mucho la conferencia de la doctora Hanne. Quisiera yo preguntarle dos cosas. Con respecto a la red, la energía empleada en carreteras, dado que el 95% de las carreteras del mundo se elaboran con mezclas en caliente, mezclas asfálticas, ¿cuál sería su opinión? Os recuerdo que una visita que hicimos a Francia, Alemania, España, yo observé una tendencia a disminuir la temperatura, pero era el método, la energía tradicional a base de hidrocarburos, pero disminuyendo de la temperatura para tener mezclas tibias o mezclas con menos temperatura, por un lado. Y por otro lado, en las plantas de Pemex, yo observé en una etapa de gran producción petrolera en México, observé una cancelación de la labor de la criogénica. ¿Cuál sería su opinión sobre estos dos puntos, por favor?
Okay, so let me see if I understood correctly. So one was about asphalt and how it's produced and lowering the temperature so you get a higher energy yield, really. The second point, I'm not quite sure I understood. Maybe, Guillermo, you can help me?
¿Puedes repetir la pregunta? La segunda parte, Zenón.
La segunda parte, sí, ¿por qué la criogénica? No sé si ella está enterada en el proceso de todo, digamos, la labor petrolera. Hay un campo de la criogénica, digamos. ¿Cuál sería la opinión de ella sobre este
All right.
proceso?
He's asking if you're aware of the cryogenic technology being used in normal, regular petrochemical processes. And if you have any familiar, are you familiar with that? And if you have any opinion?
Okay, so one is the lowering of temperature in asphalt. So
Absolutely, yes.
already there, I mean, the lowering of temperature in so many processes is something that can be done, and it's easy. And today I'm seeing, just from looking into these follow-on businesses that maybe can use our surplus heat, I'm realizing that so many production plants in our own geography are today running processes of, say, 300 degrees. And then they don't use the 300 degrees, but they use the surplus energy that they make, or the surplus heat they make for that, for other processes. And then I've asked them, could you maybe just only use like 100 degrees in all the processes? And they're like, yeah, it's possible. It's just how we do things. So it's a really old thinking about what type of energy we need, what type of heat we need on a broad scale, where if you went through them already there, you would have an energy reduction and a heat reduction. So I don't know the particular asphalt process. I'm really not knowledgeable in that, but your comment made me think of a startup that has boomed in Denmark and that we hope will create a scaled production plant with us, who produce asphalt from mycelia. So mycelia is the rhizome, it's the root net of mushrooms, and they have found a process where they can grow the mycelia to a bitumen, to form a bitumen, which is the binder in asphalt, and then mix in either biochar or stones or something else, and then create a stone-like structure that you can use for asphalt and for paving stones.
Wow.
So it's even possible to get rid of the asphalt. Just wanted to throw that in there. It's a very, very interesting company. I can write what they're called here, and you can look them up. They're called VisiBuilt.
Gracias, doctor Hanne. Gracias, señor vicepresidente. Muchas gracias.
And then there was the other comment on cryogenics. I'm afraid I don't know that, but I do know that cryo technology is being used widely in connection with hydrogen, where you can really compress it if you cool it to, like, I think it's minus 300 or 355 or something like that. But I don't know if that's in any way related to what you asked. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Gracias, Zenón. We have a request from our president, Maestro Alberto Lepi.
Gracias a ti, gracias.
Gracias, Zenón.
Zenón está en un estado que es un poco más pequeño que Dinamarca, sin contar Groenlandia, desde luego. Yo quisiera quedarme con más claridad de qué responsabilidades hay en este desarrollo de de la energía verde en el gobierno nacional, en las municipalidades y en los privados, porque veo que hay mucha participación privada y ahí preguntaría, aunque las condiciones serían diferentes, si tienen indicadores de rentabilidad en inversiones, por lo menos en los principales casos del hidrógeno, el metanol, amonio. Y también cómo resuelven el problema de muchas islas que ustedes tienen, más de 400 islas, hacen redes físicas o la solución es por el espacio, porque aunque serán unas 80 que tendrán habitantes, pero eso lo resuelven localmente o tienen en perspectiva resolverlo localmente.
So the last bit of the question, I think my translation was kind of going in two languages and it became quite confusing. The first bit about the investments, yes, a lot of it is private. Let me see if I understood your question correctly, but a lot of the investments are private, and that's to a certain degree an advantage. So you could say we definitely, as a municipality, drive the green transition as a business growth strategy. And that means the private investments drive the development. And we can control that to a certain degree. On a national level, it's kind of the same. But when you get to scale, you also need to help industry bridge the gap between the fossil price point and the green fuel price point, which is up there. So those mechanisms very often lie at the European level. Right now, the IMO, as I'm sure you're well aware, they're hopefully agreeing on this price mechanism that will do the same, help bridge the gap. But the best way to bridge this price gap is through carbon taxes. So the more you can implement carbon taxes in the big sectors that need the fuels, in heavy industry and in heavy transport, and preferably beginning with heavy transport, because heavy transport can better absorb the development costs than heavy industry that do chemicals that are already pushed very down in price and often of questionable quality. So starting with transport and implementing the carbon taxes there, that gives you a little bit of some money you can shift, so you sort of balance the scales. But us from the municipality level, we have driven it completely as private investments that then come, they develop with us, we try to pave the way, we invest in our resources, but no more. There are some examples of municipalities in Denmark where they do it as a union with the citizens. So the citizens get a shared ownership in the energy plants, and that also means in any money they make on the energy they sell. And now that most of the renewable energy implementers or developers are implementing battery storage in the parks, they can actually work as an energy trader. And that means they sell their energy when the price is highest in the market, and they hold it back when there's lots of energy in the market. And then they can even work with, say, a hydrogen producer. So when they have enough energy, they sell to them as well. And that becomes a really good implementation model, because you've got the support of the local municipality, you've got the support of the citizens, everybody's making money on it, everybody's connected to that energy system, so they really understand it, and it becomes a sustainable business model, meaning everybody's making money at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So does that answer a little bit of that part of the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Las islas, you have more than 400 islands.
Yes, islands, yes.
Yes. How do you resolve this problem with the transportation of the energy? Is it a local problem or is a regional problem?
For us in Denmark, we have many islands, but we're also very well connected. They all have, they're all on the grid. There's nothing off the grid, and the distances are fairly small. We have even drawn a cable between Denmark and another island, which is England. So we have energy supply for England through the Danish grid and our offshore wind farms. So it is very well connected, and it's not really a problem to live on an island in Denmark. There are some of the islands that are connected by ferry, so if you need fuel, it becomes a little bit more of a problem. But there are none of the ferries that will switch to green fuel. They will all be electrified. So that's not sort of an issue. But I can think of places where it will be an issue. Greenland. Greenland needs to develop their own energy systems, and their economy is not like ours. And they are self-ruled. So therefore, although they are heavily supported by the Danish government and our budget, they need to have a plan of their own as well for energy implementation. And that is not now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Doctor. I don't see any other hands raised.
I think there was a question in the comments from Guillermo Cesar Marcos on the certifications of sustainable buildings, LEED or EDGE.
Yes, Guillermo Casar, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you address that?
Sorry?
Can you address that question?
Yes. I'm afraid I'm not sure what the certifications are in Denmark. I would think that there will be something similar, or they will be aligned, because many of the innovative Danish architects work in the US and other regions as well. But I can try and find out what those are. I am in touch with a couple of developers. There's a very interesting building, if you're working in sustainable construction, that you need to see. It's called træ. So that it means wood in Danish. You probably write it like this. It's by Lindager Architects. And they have basically built a high rise in wood only. And inside they've used reclaimed wood for flooring. So they take offcuts and then they make almost like little wood bricks, and that's the flooring. And then they have things like they've used the Carlsberg beer kegs that are made of like hard plastic, and they've made tabletops out of it. And so the whole thing is circular and constructed in wood, and it's beautiful. It's just amazing. And it really sets a new standard for what can be done in sustainable construction.
Right. Well, thank you, Guillermo, for putting all these questions. Very much.
And for example, regenerative design is used in Denmark.
Regenerative design?
Yes, I think that's what he asked.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. But we're facing the same problems as everywhere else. But I think Denmark, being a smaller country and always having had a greenish profile, I think that it has been easier to get new ideas deployed and visible. And I think the visibility is a very large part of it, because all of a sudden there's a demand for it. So there are many projects being constructed, both in regenerative architecture and design, sustainable construction methods and materials. We are looking for our hub at bio-based building materials, because the bio-based materials often can be processed with the surplus heat. So that's another really nice synergy. But you can see large scale, when people are renovating their houses, and when, you know, XYZ smaller construction firm is renovating a building, they still waste a lot, they destruct a lot, and they use terrible materials. So there's a long way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the operation, for example, commissioning process used in Denmark? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Guillermo. Guillermo Fernandez, do you want to ask or participate?
Yes. I think there are several issues here that might be important, related with the academy in particular. For instance, one of the questions that I think it could be very interesting is to see how the technological organizations of Denmark have been involved, how the universities in Denmark have been involved, because all of these requires people, knowledge, interaction with research capabilities, and all of this is something that might be very important in the case of Mexico, where we need to build up a lot of this kind of infrastructure. Also, if we want to support effectively this kind of strategies in the future. I wonder if Hanne could give us some ideas about it, and if there might be some other comments from our friends about this kind of issues.
Yes. We have different capabilities in the different universities, and the universities are heavily involved in most of the innovation projects being run by our national energy cluster. It's called Energy Cluster Denmark. And we have the Danish Technological University, DTU, and they have both their energy division, and they also have one they call DTU Sustain, that are looking at various types of circular resources, amongst others, water. So that's one. Then we have in southern Denmark, we have SDU, so the Southern Denmark University. They have an entire division focused on Power to X and anything around Power to X. They also have a test center. Then we have the company Force Technology that works also as an institute, and they have created a Power to X test center as well in the vicinity of Copenhagen. Then we have Aarhus University. They have a major division for water, so they're also really invested in that side of Power to X. Then we have the Roskilde University, RUC, and Roskilde were kind of a driving force in the wind industry. I remember that from when my father lived, that he worked a lot with them at Roskilde and Risø, where they had the first e-cars and they had the first wind turbines and all of that. And they are now quite strong in pyrolysis. So they're involved in a project that we have just done where we are investigating the business case of pyrolysis. Then we have Aalborg University, and I don't know how they are connected to the I think they also work on water, and they're actually working a lot on agri-tech as well. So the sustainability of agricultural systems and the development of new ways of producing and binding it together. So we really have a very, very good triple helix, and the private developers are very good at going into contact with local municipalities or regions, as well as universities, and driving this innovation together. Often these big projects are EU funded. So again, the EU is a major driver of all this. And we're hoping that this new pledge, the NATO pledge, where we need to pay 5% to the defense budget, and where they've reserved 1.5 for resilience, a formidable political way of phrasing that we want infrastructure, but we don't dare say infrastructure because people might object. So they've called it resilience. And resilience can be interpreted as energy systems, as transport infrastructure, as reinforcement of ports or any facility you need on a port to make it resilient. So that could also be energy. And we think this 1.5% can really help these projects as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillermo. I don't see any more hands raised. There's a question about your opinion on nuclear energy within.
Oh yes, yeah. In Denmark, first of all, nuclear energy is not part of the mix. It's not allowed, so you can't plan for a nuclear plant in Denmark. There is some debate whether we should open for that, but there are many arguments against nuclear, and I think the largest argument is that if an accident happens, the effects are so all-encompassing. So the impact on the environment of a nuclear disaster are so huge that when we have renewable energy, we should use renewable energy. And it's almost like the argument between renewable power and hydrogen. Wherever you can electrify, electrify. Even if you're pushing it, electrify. We know now that the essential minerals that we need for batteries, we know that we can recycle the batteries, that we can reuse these minerals. So although it's a finite resource, then it seems likely that as long as we have a mix, then we can actually electrify everything that can be electrified. Then you get to hydrogen and the derivatives, and then you have on another stream, you have the gas, where we should go to biogas rather than the natural gas, the fossil gas. And with this energy mix, we will still have some nuclear, but nuclear should be a sort of last resort because of the impacts of a potential accident. That's how I see it.
All right. There are many things that have been inspiring in your presentation. I now know why were you invited to talk to us.
I'm glad.
Perhaps the most inspiring for me is the power to X in itself. Because it's a really clever way to gather technical issues, emotional issues, people involved, in this transition. So let me congratulate you on embracing this movement and leading it the way you have done, and for showing us all these expressions of the leadership of Denmark in this area. And well, with that, Alberto, this is it for the question and answers. Thank you very much, Hanne. It has been great to listen to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Is anyone in social media, Josue?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would like to thank everyone for the participation, attendees, and especially to the Dr. Hanne Klintøe, who is been honored with this modest but meaningful recognition by the Mexican Academy Engineer that we show now. Please, Josue. It's la Academia de Ingeniería México otorga el presente reconocimiento a Hanne Klintøe por su participación con la conferencia A Model for Deployment of Green Energy Value Chain, signed en Ciudad de México, 15 de octubre de 2025, by Maestro Alberto Lépez Zúñiga, your servant.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be able to present to you and to have that recognition as well. Thank you very much.
Well, wishing you a good night in Denmark and good day, Mexico. Thank you very much. That concludes our event.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
A good
Thank
day
you,
to
Hanne.
everyone. Bye.
Gracias, Guillermo. Gracias, Alberto.
Bye.
Muy bonita.
Muchas gracias, Hanne.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Guillermo.
Gracias, Hanne.
Hasta luego.
De la Garza.
Qué bueno que
Muchas
participaron
gracias.
tantos colegas. Muy bien.